The history of the global automotive industry is a story of ups and downs. The rise of brands and the takeover of less successful ones by more powerful competitors of brilliant ideas, and the public's and buyers' failure to understand them. Among these, a very unusual car holds an honorable place. The Kaiser Darrin, model year 1954, but like any car from the encyclopedia of the world's automotive heritage, its creation was partly accidental or the result of a fortunate coincidence. The story of this car is the story of the collaboration between two talented people, designer and engineer Howard Darrin and the owner of the car manufacturing company, Henry Kaiser. But let's start with Henry Kaiser. At the height of his empire, he owned around 100 companies involved in construction, manufacturing, and even healthcare. But he saw potential specifically in the automotive business. In 1942, when America shifted entirely to military production, Kaiser, while also producing military equipment, began developing a civilian car that would definitely be needed after World War II. The concept for the new car was simple: cheap to produce, inexpensive to buy, so much so that the car didn't even have a trunk lid, glove compartment, or other such features. The model was called the Henry J. So what does Howard Darrin have to do with this? He worked on the design of this car. He didn't like the design, took offense, and quit. A few years later, things started going downhill for Kaiser Frazer. They called him back, and he agreed. They called him to save the company. Howard Dutch Darrin was an outstanding American designer, but very temperamental and sensitive, like many artists. And he usually worked as a freelancer. He is responsible for such iconic car designs as the Packard 120 and the Packard Clipper of the 1940s. And now comes the most touching and tragic part. Darrin designed this car in secret from his boss. And at his own expense, he believed in its success. The finished prototype was presented to the boss in the early 50s, and what do you think happened? The boss yelled like a sawmill. But Darrin was defended by Kaiser's wife. She really liked the car, especially since America was starting to be flooded with so-called sports cars from the old world, which were popular among young people, like the legendary Triumph TR2. What you see now is not exactly what Darrin originally created. It's a compromise between creativity and the letter of the law. Safety regulations changed in America, and many elements had to be adjusted. Personally, as an ordinary person, I like everything about it, but the creator resigned. Howard Dutch Darrin's name was no longer mentioned in the company, but it remained in the model's name and in many design elements. For example, the broad fender line that smoothly descends along the side of the car until it reaches the dip at the top of the rear fender. Have you ever seen such an artistic touch on an old car? You should know it was Howard Darrin who came up with it. That's not all. The grille shaped like a seashell. As automotive magazines of those years wrote, it looks as if it wants to kiss you. To kiss you. That's the most harmless translation of that phrase. But no matter what the critics say, this is a very stylish and beautiful car sleek, rushing into the future, defying Americans' notions of what a car should be. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you what exactly Darrin was offended by. Originally, the headlights and the entire front end of the car were lower, and the front of the model looked more elegant. They had to raise everything and change the design. The car first saw the light of day in 1954, and it looked exactly like this. Here's another elegant design touch. Take a close look at the door. It retracts into the fender. Well, not as easily and not all the way as it might seem, but that's more due to the technological limitations of the materials of that era. Let's take another look at the door. Another innovative solution was the use of advanced technology, specifically fiberglass. The car bodies were manufactured by the shipbuilding company Glasspar. They successfully built yachts and boats from this material. By the way, the same company also made bodies for the direct competitor, the Chevrolet Corvette. Two halves of the body were cast, without trunks, hoods, or doors. Into the resulting body, the frame rails and structural elements from the very same Kaiser Henry J car were literally glued and bonded in. And the bodies were only painted in 4 colors. Champagne lacquer white, red sail lacquer, you can guess which one, yellow satin lacquer, and pine tint lacquer, which like ours is green. Well, I mean, not exactly green, it's something related to pine needles. In short, enamel paint couldn't be used. Fiberglass couldn't be dried in a paint booth, only in open air. So, the entire chassis of the sports car came from a utilitarian, inexpensive civilian vehicle. In the front, it has a wishbone spring suspension with a stabilizer bar. The whole assembly is mounted on a cross member, a distinctive feature. The shock absorber is placed inside the spring, clamped between the control arms, basically just like a Zhiguli, only with kingpins. At the rear, there's a solid axle on leaf springs. The vehicle was widely marketed as a sleek and sporty coupe. But here's the significant catch. The engine, to put it mildly and quite frankly, is a bit underpowered and noticeably weak. Yes, it's a 6-cylinder inline engine with a displacement of 2.6 liters, but it only produces 90 horsepower. Well, there's nothing supernatural here. You can clearly see the frame, the fiberglass, and 2 large corrugated hoses. This one here is simply for fresh air ventilation for airflow. And that hose over there goes to the cabin heater, which you have to admit is a nice touch. It's kind of a convertible, but with a heater. This is a Willys Overland. Does the name Willys sound familiar to you? Yes, it's that very same Willys. Essentially, the engine is a barely modified motor from a World War II era off-roader. It's torquey, responsive, but absolutely incapable of setting any speed record. But the creator focused on the car's beauty, and the interior is proof of that. There's stitched leather on both the seats and the doors, and the dashboard features round gauges trimmed with chrome. I can't say that getting into the car is very convenient because of this fender curve. You have to contort yourself to get in. In short, watch out for your tailbone. But once you sink into this luxury, you stretch out your legs, you settle into the seat, and you feel right at home. Take note, there's no handle on the inside of the door, and as I mentioned, no glove compartment either. The interior mirror is at the same height as a Kamaz truck's headlights. There's a left side mirror, but none on the right. The heater, again, is tucked away down there. An elegant solution, a cigarette lighter with a built-in light. It has integrated illumination. I'd put one like that in my Zhiguli. You can't. Well, that's about it. You can hide the fabric top behind the seat backs, which folds manually, as you saw. There's a trunk too, and it's actually quite spacious. That's the utilitarian genes showing. So what's next? Let's start it up. Wow, what a harsh sound. This powerful and efficient 6-cylinder engine makes an impressive amount of horsepower and torque. How does the car accelerate? Well, not bad, but definitely not like a sports coupe. A 3-speed gearbox with overdrive. Too few gears, too few. It truly breaks your heart when you hear the powerful engine roar. And you can really truly hear it with such clarity. It's painful. And the dedicated restorers at Kamishmash hear it too, quite clearly. After all, this is an exhibit from the retro gallery of the restaurant Le Calin, restored by the Kamishmash workshop. But to be honest, If you really want to, you can get the Kaiser Darrin up to the claimed 160 kilometers per hour. The car weighs less than a ton. You can do it, but again, it just feels wrong. The classic leaf spring suspension is soft, responsive, and handles bumps beautifully. And do you know how to engage overdrive? You shift into third gear, accelerate, and there's a lever under the steering wheel. You press the clutch pedal and pull it towards you. Something clicks, and you actually get a sort of fourth gear. But it doesn't actually get much easier. Yes, the engine does roar a bit more quietly. Actually, no, it does get easier. I take that back. And do you know why this car never became popular? The first Corvette appeared on the market. Sure, it wasn't as elegant as this one, but it was powerful and aggressive. In 2 years of production, only 435 units were made. Kaiser went bankrupt and production was halted. The remaining bodies and incomplete cars were later bought by Howard Darrin himself, who equipped them with powerful 270 horsepower V8 Cadillac engines and sold them off. There were only about 100 of these last cars. Fiberglass is finicky, and many of these cars simply didn't survive over the decades. All the more surprising, then, to find this creation in the Kamishmash Museum collection. The world of automobiles is much more diverse than we think. There is still so much we don't know. Every car, every specimen is not just a page, but an entire article in the encyclopedia. And there will be enough of these articles to last us a lifetime. The hunt continues. If you think opening the roof on this convertible is easy, you're mistaken. You'll have to do some manual work. First, unclip the fasteners above the windshield to loosen the vinyl top. Then, release the tensioners on both sides. And then climb into the cabin to unscrew the wing nuts. Carefully fold it completely forward and then proceed to gently open the spacious trunk of the vehicle. Then open another part, which is extremely difficult to get a grip on. And then lower the top without scratching it. It doesn't work. So I have to close the trunk lid again. Carefully fold back the compartment cover for the top section even further, ensuring it is fully extended. And once again, I can get it to work. How am I supposed to solve this puzzle? How do you fit the unfittable? Like this. Got it now. You need to loosen the ribs. And then carefully push this particular thing completely inside. Just like that, yeah? And carefully put everything neatly and precisely away. That's pretty much about it. It is now completely and utterly done.